I'm Dave from boyinaband.com, and welcome to the final day of my 7-day song on Dirty Dubstep. Yesterday we discussed effects, arrangement of the song along with the notes and rhythms, and today we'll be adding the finishing touches to mixing it and quickly talking about bringing it up to a nice level with the mastering tools in Reason 5, and it's also in Reason 4 too. So, when you're mixing, try to mix on a pair of flat response speakers if possible, since overly bassy hi-fi systems or regular old PC speakers will end up giving a false representation of the sound. This is especially important with a genre of music that's bass heavy. If you don't have speakers you're used to that give a decent all-round representation of the frequency spectrum, then make sure you test out your mix on a few systems. In headphones, on the car stereo, out of a giant megaphone sellotape to the side of a blimp, just to see if the track is nice wherever you hear it. You don't want a good mix in your car and a bad sounding mix when you're riding a customized dirigible. The beat and the bass, as we've got here, beat, bass, are as per usual generally loudest. However, try to make your basses a little bit quieter than your beats so it punches through. And try to keep them out of the red as well. If we take a quick listen to partway through this track. You can see the bass is just topping out in the yellow there. And I've let the beat creep into the red, not clipping though, there's an important difference. It'll tell you if it's clipping down here. But with the basses, I'm keeping them low into the yellow, so I have room to do some playing with the frequencies in the master. The leads, since they're higher pitched, don't need as much volume generally to stay audible in the mix, especially since the basses take the fore in this genre of music. I've let the siren be this loud because it's got a similar kind of job to the basses, as in it makes people hurt. And those pads should be quite comfortable lower in the mix as well. See, the super saw pad is nice and low, as are the strings. Now the effects can be a bit awkward since reverses need to be nice and loud, but you don't want the cymbals swamping the track. So it's a good idea to go into the FX and adjust the volumes here. So we've got the reverses coming through here and here. So those are quite muted at the moment. If we bring them up a little bit. And then you can see where they come in, so if we do a quick test. There we go, that's nice. Another thing to think about is stereo space. If you have two sounds that live in a similar frequency, try widening one, so it is able to sit in the mix either side of the other sound. You can do this with chorus, or if you're being a bit clever, routing one channel through a tiny delay with no feedback and full wet dry, then pan the channels hard left and right. One last pro tip is to automate the overall volume of the track. Once you've mixed it all down, bring the volume up a few decibels when the drops hit, and it will feel like the world is collapsing, or at least a bit louder. Either of which is good for dubstep. So, that's the mix. The best thing to do is to give it a few days after you've mixed it, come back, and mix it again with a new perspective. Not with a new perspective, which would be an African peoples living around the Benue River in East Nigeria, made out of clear acrylic resins. I'm not sure if they'd be able to help, though it is always a good idea to get an outside opinion on the track as well. Then, it's time for mastering. Now I sneakily added in another mastering suite here, while you weren't looking. The first one is on 8-band parallel compression mode. You can select it just by clicking here and selecting it there, which is brilliant for bringing up the overall level of 8 different frequency bands of the track. So it's louder than just general old compression, but it can result in the track sounding overcompressed if you're not careful. So I've just left all the options as they were because it was quite a nice default. So if we take a listen to it without and with, just hear how much presence that brings. Then the other one, here, I've just left it on the default mastering suite in Reason, because it's got this loudness curve option it's put in, which just brings up, if we have a look at this EQ, just brings up the bottom and the top nicely. So if I put it down to where it was before, and then we have a quick play. See with it nice and high. That's a bit too much, but if we bring it down here, it's quite nice. In fact, it might do with coming down a little bit more than that. See, it just brings it up, just makes it a little bit more present. And if you're worried about the lack of dynamic range, i.e. the punchiness of the kick drum, don't have the master gain so high. The song will be quieter, but when you boost the volume of the system to a comparable volume, it'll feel 10 times punchier. Unfortunately, since it isn't possible to tell DJs to make your track much louder than the rest, you might have to sacrifice this dynamic range for the volume to compete with the volumes of other tracks in clubs. And that's about it for the mix and master. Tune in for part 2, where we'll be playing the final finished 7 Days song.